You lean into the bathroom mirror the way you have 10,000 times before, lipstick in hand, and something has shifted. The color goes on, and it doesn't sit where it used to. It creeps into tiny vertical lines above your lip line that you don't remember drawing there. The bottom lip, which used to hold its shape all day, looks thinner by noon, like it's quietly deflating. You blot, you reapply, and 20 minutes later, you're doing it again. This isn't your imagination, and it isn't bad technique. Your lips are changing. The collagen and fat pad underneath are thinning. The border that used to define where lipstick starts and skin begins is softening, and almost nothing on the shelf at Sephora was built with that in mind. Here's what I want you to hold on to before we go anywhere else, because I'm saving the most shocking find for the very top of this list. And it's not a formula, it's not an ingredient. It's two lipsticks that look like they come from completely different worlds. One impulse buy, and one you save up for. And by the time we get there, you're going to find out they're made by the exact same company. Let that sit in the back of your mind while we work through the rest. Now, the one thing I need you to understand before we start, because it changes how you read every single product on this list. You are not choosing a color. You are choosing a texture. And the beauty industry has spent 30 years training you to think those are the same decision. Long wear matte lipstick became the gold standard because it photographs well and survives a coffee cup. But the thing that makes matte lipstick long wear, the alcohol, the fine powders, the film-forming resins, is the same thing that settles straight into the fine vertical lines that appear on thinning lips and makes them look deeper, not smoother. A 25-year-old with a full lip pad can wear a dry matte all day, and it just looks matte. On a lip that's lost volume, that same formula finds every crease and sits in it like ink in a groove. This is not a flaw in your application. It's a mismatch between the product and the lip it's being asked to sit on. Every pick on this list earns its place because it got that mismatch right. Because somebody in a lab decided texture was the actual problem to solve, not an afterthought to color. Number 8, and I want to start here on purpose because it's going to feel like the wrong place to open a countdown like this. L'Oreal Paris Age Perfect Satin Lipstick with Serum. A drugstore lipstick under $15 sitting at the bottom of a shelf next to shampoo. Here's why it belongs on a list next to lipsticks that cost 4 times as much. L'Oreal did something unusual for a mass brand. They built a lipstick with a specific customer in mind, a mature lip, and put a hyaluronic acid-based serum core inside the bullet instead of treating hydration as marketing copy on the box. It's not the most sophisticated formula on this list, and the shade range is more limited than the prestige brands. But the fact that a company this size looked at the mature lip market and decided it deserved a dedicated formula, rather than just a nude shade added to an existing line, tells you the demand is real. This is the drugstore quietly doing its homework. Number 7 is Merit Beauty's Shade Slick. If you haven't heard of Merit, that's sort of the point. It's a small, independent brand built by a former beauty editor who got tired of 10-step routines and decided minimalism could still be excellent. Shade Slick is a balm lipstick hybrid, sheer to medium coverage, built almost entirely around emollients rather than pigment-heavy waxes. On a thinning lip, that ratio matters enormously. You get color without the stiff, dry hold that emphasizes exactly the texture changes we just talked about. The trade-off is honest. This isn't a lipstick built for 8 hours of coffee cups and wine glasses. It's built to feel like nothing's there at all, which, on a lip that's already telling you it wants less interference, is precisely the assignment. Number 6, and this is where my own training kicks in a little, because I have to talk about Lanasia's lip sleeping mask. This is owned by Amore Pacific, one of the two giants of the Korean beauty industry. And it did something no Western lip product had really done before it became a global phenomenon. It treated the lips as skin that needed an overnight routine, not just a canvas for color. It's not a lipstick at all. It's a treatment balm, worn to bed, built around berry extract and vitamin C to support the skin barrier while you sleep. Here's why it earns a spot on a lipstick list. Everything else on this countdown works better on top of a lip that's already been repaired, not just covered. Korean skincare philosophy treats the lip the same way it treats the rest of the face. Hydrate first, layer thin to thick. Let the actives do quiet work before you ever reach for pigment. Put this under any lipstick on this list, and you'll notice less feathering by the end of the day. And I'll say this plainly, because I don't want you to think Korean is a magic word. Amora Pacific is a massive, publicly traded conglomerate, not a tiny artisanal lab. It plays the same pricing and packaging games every big beauty company plays. It just happens, in this specific case, to have built something genuinely useful. Number 5 is NARS Afterglow Lip Balm. And here's your ownership reveal for this one. NARS has been owned by Shiseido, the Japanese beauty giant, since the year 2000. Not Korean. And I want to be precise about that, because the beauty world lumps East Asian brands together constantly, and it does a disservice to all of them. Shiseido has its own philosophy, built on decades of dermatological research rather than the K-beauty layering model. Afterglow is a sheer, high-shine balm with a cushiony, almost gel-like finish, deliberately built to sit on top of the lip rather than sink into it, which on a thinning lip reads as fullness rather than flatness. The shine itself is doing structural work here, not just cosmetic work. Light bouncing off a rounded, glossy surface creates the illusion of volume that a flat matte simply can't fake. Number 4. Charlotte Tilbury's Lip Cushion. And the ownership story here is one people almost never know. Charlotte Tilbury Beauty was bought in 2020 by Puig, the Spanish conglomerate that also owns Rabanne and holds the license for Jean Paul Gaultier fragrance. This is not the indie British passion project the packaging still whispers that it is. It's a well-run division of a European luxury holding company. What earns it a place here anyway is the formula itself. The lip cushion applies like a gloss and sets like a soft cushioned matte, splitting the difference between the two textures that usually force you to choose. On a mature lip, that in-between finish is exactly the sweet spot. Enough grip to hold color, enough give to avoid sitting in fine lines. You're paying a premium for polish and packaging as much as formula. And I'd rather you know that going in than find out later. Number 3, and I want to name this one because it deserves more attention than it gets. Westman Atelier's Lip Suede. Gucci Westman built this brand after decades as a working makeup artist, and it remains independently owned, which in this industry is genuinely rare air by the time you're talking about a brand with this level of polish. Lip Suede is a cream matte, which sounds like a contradiction until you try it. Full pigment, soft focus finish, but engineered specifically to not grab onto texture the way a true matte does. Westman has said publicly that the brand was built to work on skin that's actually aging, not skin photographed at 25 under studio lighting. And you can feel that intention in this formula. It costs what an independent, small batch artist formulated lipstick costs. That's the honest trade-off. You're not subsidizing a conglomerate's marketing budget, but you're also not getting a $14 price tag. Number 2. Fenty Beauty's Gloss Bomb Universal Lip Luminizer. You already know this one. It's one of the most successful lip products of the last decade, and it was built, correctly, around the idea that universal shades that flatter every skin tone were an underserved category that the entire industry had somehow ignored for 100 years. Here's the piece most people don't know. Fenty Beauty is owned by LVMH through their incubator Kendo Brands, the same house behind Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Moet. The formula itself is genuinely well built for thinning lips. High shine, cushiony, plumping without silicone stiffness. But I do want to flag one honest caveat, because I promised you honesty over hype on this channel. Several shades in the Gloss Bomb line include a very slight tingle from mint and ginger extract, which most lips tolerate fine, but which can read as more noticeable, even mildly irritating, on lips that have thinned and become more sensitive with age. If that's you, look for the non-tingling shades in the range rather than assuming they're all identical. And here we are. Number 1. I told you I was saving the strangest reveal for last, and here it is. Dior Addict Lip Glow. This was one of the first color-adapting lip balms on the market when it launched. A sheer, buildable formula built around hyaluronic acid and cherry oil that reacts to your skin's individual pH to create a shade unique to you, rather than sitting flatly on top like conventional pigment. On a thinning lip, that chemistry does something almost no other product on this list can claim. Because the color is generated by your own skin rather than layered pigment, there's nothing to feather, nothing to sit in a fine line, nothing to migrate by lunchtime. It behaves less like makeup and more like a treatment that happens to leave a flattering tint behind. And now, the reveal. Dior is owned by LVMH, the exact same parent company as Fenty Beauty, the pic sitting one spot below it. Two lip products that could not look more different on a shelf, one in millennial pink packaging that costs about $20, one in a gold cylinder that costs roughly double, quietly developed under the same corporate roof, competing for different customers who have no idea they're buying from the same company twice. That's not a scandal. It's just how this industry actually works. And I think you deserve to see it clearly. The line isn't gone. It's just waiting for someone who knows how to find it again. That's the thread running under everything I just told you. And I want to give you a way to actually use it, not just admire it. Start with a thin layer of balm before any lipstick every single time. Something plain, something built to hydrate rather than perform, worn for even 5 minutes before you put on color. This is the layering first habit Korean skincare drilled into an entire generation. And it applies here directly. Hydrated lips hold color better and longer than dry ones. Full stop. Second, reach for a lip liner again, even if you gave it up years ago, as fussy or old-fashioned. A liner that matches your natural lip tone, applied just at the border, and softened slightly outward with your fingertip, does more to restore visual fullness than any lipstick alone possibly can. It's redrawing a boundary that's genuinely softened, not exaggerating one that's still there. Third, when you're testing a new lipstick, stop swatching it on the back of your hand. Swatch it on your actual lip and watch what happens over the next hour, because that's where texture reveals itself. Hand skin doesn't move, doesn't dry the way lip skin does, and it will lie to you about how a formula actually wears. And finally, consider a gradient application if you want a fuller look without the stiffness of a full matte. Color concentrated at the center of the lip, blended outward, and lighter toward the edges. It's a simple technique borrowed from Korean makeup artistry, and it creates the illusion of a plumper lip using nothing but placement. A few honest notes before I let you go shopping. Shade availability and even formulas on some of these do shift by region and season. What I'm describing is accurate as of right now, but treat this as a map of what to look for, rather than a guaranteed list to screenshot and hand to a store clerk. If you're trying a lip product with a new active ingredient for the first time, especially anything exfoliating, patch test it. because lips are thinner skinned and more reactive than you'd expect. And one thing I want to say clearly, because this format can accidentally imply things it shouldn't. Nothing on this list is a substitute for SPF on your lips during the day. Lip skin has no oil glands and almost no melanin protection, and sun exposure is one of the real, provable contributors to the thinning and fine lining we've spent this whole video talking about. Wear a balm with SPF underneath your color in daylight. That's not a nice to have. That's the one piece of this whole conversation I'd ask you not to skip. Here's the bigger thing I want you to leave with. Almost every lipstick on this list, expensive or cheap, independent or conglomerate owned, ultimately traces back to a small handful of parent companies making very deliberate decisions about who gets which formula at which price. That was never the scandal. The real danger was never the giant behind the curtain. It's the neglect. The decades the entire industry spent assuming mature lips just meant add more pigment instead of asking what an aging lip actually needs. The brands on this list, whoever owns them, are the ones that finally asked the right question. The line isn't gone. It's just waiting for someone who knows how to find it again. Tell me in the comments which of these you've already got sitting in your bag, and which one you're finally ready to try instead of the one you've been overpaying for out of habit. If this kind of honest ingredient level digging is useful to you, stay close. I've got a video coming up pulling back the curtain on foundation for crepey skin, and it's going to surprise you just as much as this one did.